Welcome on into the podcast. I'm Brett.
I am Dorian. So
First hopeful video of us on our YouTube channel. We've just been audio before this, but we're going to kind of experiment, see if it works. If not, hopefully a future episode has video.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're in Avatar Season 1.
Season 1, Book 1,
Water. Yeah. So it's our first series we've done.
Yep.
Which was a lot. There's a lot more to it than I thought.
No, there is. And especially something like Avatar The Last Airbender, it has a lot more depth to it, a lot more lore. It's not just like, something an easy watch of a movie or something along those lines. There's a lot more influences that you can look at and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, and we'll be talking about it, but do you want to start us off?
Yeah, so how about we start it off how we always start off our Thursday Throwbacks. What were your first impressions of watching Avatar The Last Airbender?
First impressions were probably, oh gosh, the show came out in what, 2005?
I believe so, yeah. Yeah, it's 15th anniversary this year.
That's nuts to me. I guess that makes sense because I'm old. Yeah. So I don't remember how I heard about the show. I'm sure it was like because Nickelodeon was on in my house because I have two younger siblings.
Sure, yeah.
Especially my brother watching whatever he's watching, But I remember seeing like a commercial for it. And I was like, oh, this looks cool. There's fighting. I've always been about martial arts and stuff like that. So, yeah, so I just remember being excited for it. We watched the premiere. I think it was probably on a Friday. I can't really remember, to be honest.
So you were there from the very
I was there from literally the first episode. And I think I watched it multiple times because I was like, this is dope.
Okay.
And I think it was a 2-episode. I think it was an hour long.
Yeah.
I think it was episode 1 and 2 were at the same time.
I mean, it makes sense because those two episodes pretty much like bleed right into each other here for the most part. Like there's like no... It feels like there's really no interruption, that they were designed to be one episode, but
right. And this is something both me and my brother liked watching together. I was always like, when's the next season coming out? I think it's one of the only shows where I was like, it's taking so long for the next episode.
Yeah. Well, especially like this show in particular, because this is like one of the few shows I remember being a kid's show that had like an actual overarching story and like actually was like playing a main factor or a main part of like the overall series, because most of the shows that I grew up on as a kid, they all just had like pretty much standalone episodes for the most part. Yeah,
I would say that this is definitely a show that is story driven.
Yeah, big time.
So yeah.
My first impressions, not quite the same as yours, because when I first heard about it, saw like little bits and pieces about it or like commercials for it, I just kind of had disdain for it because I was just like, nah, man, this is just some kid's show here. I don't want to watch this. Like I was kind of like getting into like anime during that time. So I was like, if you weren't like as dark and as gritty as Naruto, I was like, I don't want to have anything to do with you.
Yeah, I get that. Because that was another big show at the time.
That it was, yeah. So I always wrote it off as just some kid show, and for the longest time, I just did not really have any interest in it at all until I think it was when we were at Alex's house one time, and you were showing Ely the last 3 episodes of the series, or like the Sozin's Comment.
Oh yeah,
story arc, and so I'm like, all right, fine. I guess we're watching this tonight here, and then. I
think I remember that.
Yeah, it was a long time ago here, but then I saw that, I'm like, okay, there's actually probably more to this show than I actually written off, because that was actually pretty good, because I remember being just kind of overtaken by like, okay, this animation is like really smooth and there's a lot of lore to here, so this might actually be something I need to actually go back and watch. And so pretty much afterwards, I binged the whole series. I was just like, all right, I see why people like this thing out here.
Yeah.
So, but what were your first impressions of rewatching this show here?
So rewatching it, I was chomping at the bit to watch this again. This is not something I own. Season 2 and 3 on DVD.
Okay.
but I haven't rewatched it in probably 10 years.
Yeah. Okay.
So for me, I was coming in fresh. My wife's never seen the show.
Yeah. So is this something you can introduce to her?
She loved it.
That's cool.
She thought it was amazing. Like, it's just season 1, but yeah, for those of you, well, I don't even know if I want to stand here. Actually, never mind. So,
are you gonna make another homeschooler joke again?
No, I don't do that anymore. I get too much crap for it.
Oh gosh.
My wife's a homeschooled kid.
I'm
So are you.
Yeah. For a bit. Yeah.
Gross. No, I'm just kidding. But no, so for my first impression of like the rewatch, I was just really excited to get into it.
Yeah.
I mean, I couldn't wait until Netflix dropped it, and I think the day it dropped, I think we watched like 4 or 5 episodes, which for us is a lot, I guess.
Yeah.
But she wasn't feeling well over the weekend, and so we just knocked it out.
Had a marathon.
Yeah, we just knocked it out.
Oh yeah, because I remember like going on to the show notes here, and like, you were already like 10 episodes within like a couple of days.
I think it was 2 days. Yeah.
I was like, holy crap! Like,
yeah. Because it came out Friday, right? And then Saturday we weren't really doing anything, and so I was like, I'm just gonna crank them out.
Yeah.
So I think we finished by like Monday.
Jeez.
I think we were done Monday. It was crazy, but anyway, I would say the only thing that I didn't like about the rewatch, or at least that I didn't remember as well, was like the animation suffers a little bit in season 1.
A little bit, yeah.
But the story is so much tighter than I remember.
Yeah. No, I would say. Yeah, it's been a while for me since I've watched this show, like, roughly, I don't know, like 10 years, 7 years, somewhere around there. But I'd say it holds up pretty well. I would definitely say the animation, like, it does suffer a little bit here. But, I mean, that's to be expected here, especially when we had, like, something like Legend of Korra that...
Oh, yeah, so smooth.
That took, like, what already was really good about...
Made it better.
Yeah, it made it better. Or like things like One Punch Man, like some of the fight scenes in that are like super smooth and super crisp, but so. But moving on to our next topic here. Yeah,
so the world itself. So I think it's important to understand the world of Avatar if you're looking at getting into it, because there's a lot to it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just, like you said, a normal kid show where you can kind of come in and be like if you look at Power Rangers or like Ninja Turtles or something like that, it's super easy to grasp what they're doing.
Well, yeah, because it's like, it's the monster of the week, or it's this thing. And I think that's probably one of the reasons why I had a hard time getting into it when I would occasionally catch an episode.
Because you can't really,
Yeah, because you have to actually know like what has been building up to at this point in time.
Right.
You can't just... jump in whenever you feel like it and just, call it a day.
So, yeah, the world. So, I'm going to set the stage just a little bit for people who, I guess, haven't,
Or it's been a while.
Or it's been a while, and maybe you're thinking about rewatching, and so you're listening to the podcast or watching on YouTube. Like, looking at the world itself. So, this is set in a world where there are people with special powers known as bending.
Yeah.
And bending refers to bending the element to do what you want it to do, kind of thing.
Right.
And the Avatar is the main protagonist, and he can wield them all essentially. He can bend every element, and the elements are air, water, earth, and fire.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So there's a heavy martial arts influence in a technology that, like, the technology of the culture. So they're all like kind of associated into these different kingdoms or tribes, basically.
Right, yeah.
And I'll kind of get into that in a second, and the technology ranges depending on where you live.
Right, yeah.
So you have places like the air temples where the air nomads live, which are heavily based on like Tibetan monk culture.
Yeah, no, and they're very like, non-violent for the most part here. They do not believe in like, capital punishment per se, or like,
they're vegetarians.
They're vegetarians. Yeah. They don't believe even in, they believe that all life is sacred type of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you have the water tribe, which their tribes are North and South Pole.
Yep.
And they're based heavily on like Inuit culture as well as Native American.
Yeah.
You see it in different places, like they wear the big heavy coats, the furs, like the Inuit culture does.
Yep.
They also, you see when they're kind of like in their warrior mode, you see
the face
paint
yeah.
and like the boomerang and the types of weapons they would use are kind of more akin to that of the Native American tribes.
Yeah, very
America.
very like tribal, very
like spears, clubs,
very wood based.
Yeah.
Forgery here, whereas like you have like Fire Nation, which is like kind of more like medieval, like with like iron and swords and stuff like that.
Yeah, so then we head to the Earth Kingdom, which is heavily represented as being they're Chinese. They're representing the Chinese culture.
Yeah.
And you see that more in season 2 because you see places like Ba Sing Se, which is literally just the Great Wall times 10.
Yeah, no, I mean, Ba Sing Se is essentially like China here. It's got a big wall. It has like, the Chinese streets, Chinese market, Chinese palace, and, it's probably the most China-inspired area in the series here, I would say.
Yeah, I would say both, people group-wise, Chinese, and geographically definitely resembles China.
Yeah.
Then we look into the Fire Nation, and this is kind of where it gets cool, I think. So from a like government standpoint, or kind of how they interact with the world, as a people group, they're more like an imperialistic Japan.
Kind of, yeah, to a certain extent. I mean, they definitely their attire is more Chinese based. I feel
totally,
like.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, mentality wise, yeah, definitely imperialistic Japan and whatnot for sure.
Yeah, and then geographically, their geography was based on Iceland.
Yeah.
And so just pretty cool. I mean, and so when we talk about like technology, I guess if you look at the air nomads, I mean, there's not really any technology there. Not a whole lot. They have their gliders that they fly around on because they can airbend.
Sure, but I mean, but you even see like in the one episode where they return to the Northern Air Temple and like how
that's a big deal. Yeah,
it's like technology is kind of taking over the temple, and that's like something that Aang is like not.
He's mad about.
Yeah.
Yeah, then you have Water Tribe, who they live in igloos for the most part, or ice-made buildings. You see it different from the south to the north.
Yeah, I mean, south is kind of like the ghetto part of that.
Yeah.
That whole infrastructure, whereas the north is
it's like beautiful palaces made of ice.
Oh yeah, no, it's they got it going on up there here, and they got like all these like a lot more like traditions and culture, it seems like, than they do down south, just because south is like they're just struggling just to live down there for the most part.
Yeah, and then you have the Earth Kingdom, which they're definitely more technologically advanced than Air Nomads or Water Tribe.
Mm-hmm.
I would say they're not as cutting edge as Fire Nation. They're like Fire Nation's like a step above them always. Like like Earth Kingdom has things like their big walls, kind of the way they operate and move things. Like
they use like bending essentially to like substitute like things for technology, whereas like the
Fire Nation.
Fire Nation is more or less like actually like doing more industrial stuff. They're making the tanks, they're making like the trains, the blimps, all these other improvements to like technology, or these leaps in technology here.
Yeah, I would say the setting of this time is probably like it's during like an industrial revolution. Like their technology is changing so quick, and you see that even more so in Korra.
Yeah, I would say Korra definitely is full on industrial revolution here.
This is the beginning of it, I feel like.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about it later, but there's an episode where they make a blimp, and that's not been done before, and the Fire Nation takes that and it comes back later in the season. So
yep.
But they have tanks and stuff like that, and they're powered by their fire bending,
Yeah.
So but yeah, so let's talk about. So we talked about the cultures. Let's talk about the bending itself, the martial arts.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Which both of us are martial arts guys. Yep. I mean,
we both have a background in it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, just even appreciation of what it is.
Oh yeah, no,
even before that, Ninja Turtles was one of the first shows I wanted to watch in Power Rangers. Those were my jam before I got into martial arts.
No, same here. Like at least with the Ninja Turtles, like I love Ninja Turtles, and like watching Ninja Turtles was one of the things that like kind of instilled in me like, hey, I actually do want to do martial arts.
That's why I started doing martial arts when I was 4.
Yeah.
Is because I wanted to be a Ninja Turtle.
Yeah.
So, and I think it's so cool the amount of depth they went into to really make this authentic.
Yeah, no, because I feel like, this isn't the first time we've had like, like a modern day cartoon basically tackle like martial arts.
No, there's tons. Dragon Ball Z.
Well, Dragon Ball Z, obviously Ninja Turtles and Power
Naruto.
Rangers, Naruto, and also even like Samurai Jack. Tackled martial arts. Even things like Jake Long, the American.
Oh yeah,
Dragon. Yeah. But
Jackie Chan Adventures.
Jackie Chan. I still to this day cannot believe that was a show.
Yeah.
Like,
oh yeah, it was a show. I watched it.
And it was like, you know what? I'm not gonna get into it right now just because I feel like that's gonna take up too much time.
Yeah.
But that being said, I feel like this is like probably one of the first shows I've really seen that actually dissects and like shows the respect of martial arts rather than just like saying like, okay, yeah, this is like kind of like, you know, in Dragon Ball, like, okay, yeah, this is this move here. And you might see a little bit of like, you know, martial arts application, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. But for the most part, it's like
punching and kicking.
No, I'm going to shoot my laser beam at you.
And
here,
that
you know?
too.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's one of the things I really appreciate about the Avatar, not just series, like the first series, but every series that has followed and will follow.
Yeah.
Is that how close attention to detail that the creators of it wanted, and so they even hired a Sifu. Can't remember his name, but he
kind of
basically showed them.
Styles,
yeah,
right?
totally. So let's go over that right now. So
Yeah.
every style has their own unique way of using their powers, their bending. None the same as the other, which makes the action really engaging.
Yeah, and I mean, even as like a martial artist, like I always kind of notice like the differences of like, you know, the different styles because you have like the water and air, which are more fluid elements here. They you know, they have like a lot more like flowing to their techniques and stuff, whereas like earth obviously more rooted, strong. You know, you're doing more like, you know, kind of like hard style, rooted style.
Totally.
And even fire is a little bit like that too.
Yeah. Yeah. So air, which is, the airbending is based off Bagua, which is also known as circle walking. And it's a very defensive type of martial art.
Right. Which, I mean, lines up with the philosophy of the air nomads here.
Yeah. And circle walking had to do with there's a lot of spinning in the martial art.
Sure.
Which you see Aang do constantly.
Yeah.
Constantly moving and trying to get to the back of your opponent.
Yeah.
And then you have water, which is based heavily on Tai Chi, which is very push-pull, flowy.
Yeah.
And then there's a lot of whip. Like she uses the water whip in season 1
that's her
quite a bit.
move. Yeah.
And, you know, that's a very, you know, it's kind of slow, but then has a little bit of power at the end.
Yeah.
And so Tai Chi is definitely, and breathing. There's a lot of breathing in both Tai Chi and most martial arts, but just kind of breathing it in and breathing it out. And you see that when she's doing water bending and turning to ice.
Yeah, exactly. That was exactly what I was just about to mention. Yeah.
And then we have earth bending, which, like you said, is very hard style martial arts based on Hung Gar Kung Fu. And in Hung Gar, a lot of their different forms, I guess, or styles are rooted in looking at the animals. Yeah. So you have very hard style, which is like tiger style.
Right. Yeah.
So very hard, low stance, powerful. And then you have crane style, which is still like a harder style, but more finesse, like a little, not maybe as much power, but kind of those movements that are in between. And so, which is pretty cool. And then we have a character later down the line who uses a completely different style. It's called like I think it's a praying mantis, southern praying mantis style. Which is a kung fu, which is Toph. She uses a different style than all the other earthbenders.
Okay.
And we'll find out why on our next episode. Yeah. But so fire, based on Northern Shaolin Kung Fu.
Yeah.
Which, if you know Northern Shaolin, it's very stylized, kind of flashy, which totally makes sense for firebending.
Yeah, no, it does. I mean,
it's powerful and heavy emphasis on breathing, and you see that as well.
You do see that, yes. Yep.
So you see the firebenders kind of breathing in, and they'll like release with they're breathing with their punches, which you should in martial arts. But
exactly.
You know, the dragon breath, all that stuff that you see.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting and really cool on how they incorporated like real life martial arts concepts to essentially like a show about people like using like superpowers to like get the job done here, you know?
Yeah, and that's what's cool is like, go ahead and you can watch a YouTube video before you want to get in the series, but
yeah, there's tons of them out there.
There's tons of them out there that highlight the different styles, and they're so different from each other. Like, they could have very easily made a show where throwing a rock at someone was the exact same movement as throwing a fireball at someone.
They could have, yeah.
But they're completely different.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, as a firebender, you're going to punch for your
fire, yeah.
But if you're an earthbender, you're probably you're going to stomp to kick the rock up and then probably punch. Little nuances like that make a huge difference watching.
Yeah, no, for sure. So, let's talk about the characters of this series, or at least like in season 1 in particular here, just because I feel like they are like one of the strongest parts of this show here. So
definitely.
So we're kind of going over like who they are, what makes them tick, and how do they develop through the season here. And first off, let's start with the main man himself, which would be Aang.
Yeah, the Avatar.
Yep.
So he starts off very carefree, fun-loving kid is kind of the impression you get. And then a couple episodes in, you get that he found out he was the Avatar for him recently.
Yeah.
Right? And so for those of you who don't know, the main premise is Aang has been frozen in ice for 100 years. The Avatar has been missing for 100 years, stuck in an iceberg. And so for him, it's been no time, but for everyone else, it's been 100 years.
Yeah.
He didn't want to accept the responsibility as the Avatar in the beginning of the season. Like, he didn't want people to know he was the Avatar, period.
Yep.
He wants peace, and he's a big proponent of justice.
Yeah.
And he refuses to kill, basically.
Right.
He wants people to pay for what they've done, but he doesn't want to take life.
Right, which, I mean, isn't like super... like they don't really shine a spotlight on that whole aspect like right now in this season. I mean, it becomes a big issue pretty much like in season 3, book 3, Fire, whatever you want to call it. But no, I mean, this season, like, is really just focusing on Aang, about the coming of age story here for the most part, like finding his resolve to be the Avatar. And basically this whole season is basically showing Aang like the repercussions of him not taking responsibility 100 years ago, and like what has happened to the world because of it. Because the thing is like, he was supposed to go to the Northern Air Temple
to train,
but that meant he had to leave his master that he really admired here.
Mm-hmm.
So at that point, basically he
threw a tantrum and ran away. And that ended up costing the entire world to not have an Avatar for 100 years. So at that point, what you're going to have is like the Fire Nation be undisputed for 100 years and allow them free reign for 100 years. Yeah.
So
I mean, that's all I got for Aang. I think you see him grow quite a bit towards the end of the season, though.
I think so too. Yeah. I mean, obviously he's went from like somebody who really wasn't treating the responsibility of an Avatar seriously to the point where he gets to the point where he's like, okay, I have to do this now. There's no way I can let things be the way that they are.
Yeah, because essentially he's running the whole season.
Pretty much.
Until the end where they make their stand.
Yeah, I mean, that last part, those last 3 episodes are kind of where like he actually does fight back, and he's like actually pretty much tells the world like the Avatar is back, and I'm not to be trifled with here,
right,
basically. But next up on the list, Katara.
Yeah, so I mean, Katara is kind of, she's an okay character. I mean, she develops a lot later, I think, in the series.
Oh, very much. Well, even like towards the end of this season, I feel like she's a lot more developed. She's
the unsure girl who comes into her own, essentially. And so at the beginning, she's very like, doesn't know the world very much, other than her and Sokka's mom was killed by the Fire Nation, so they know they're bad, obviously.
Yeah, no, they already know what side or what team they're playing for.
Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in this season, you definitely see her progress, both like, in terms of like physical prowess, but also like character wise. Here you get to see she starts out like very innocent, kind of not knowing much about the world, kind of more of a simplistic lifestyle and simplistic mentality in terms of like coming, handling things or going about things, but kind of learns like lessons on like what the world is actually like and how she needs to adapt to it. And then, obviously beginning of the season, she barely can like water bend here.
Yeah, she's just learning.
She's just learning. She hasn't had like a proper teacher or a proper mentor. By the end of it, she's like one of the best water benders in the world by the end of season 1 here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, yeah, because I mean, we'll talk about it later in the episodes, but she has never had a waterbending teacher because there's no other waterbenders in the southern water tribe where they're from. So she's had to learn it all on her own or from scrolls that have been handed down or that they find.
Yep.
And then she easily outclasses everyone once she's allowed to be a student.
Yeah. So next up on the list is Sokka.
Sokka.
Yep.
Yeah. So Sokka's kind of cool. I think growing up, he was one of the more characters I identified with.
Just being the older
brother, protective.
Kind of being more pragmatic about things here. Yeah. No, I get that.
So, yeah, he's obviously a goof, too.
Yeah, he's obviously mostly there for comedic effect. He's the pretty much only non-bender out of the group of our 4.
Yeah, which I think is a really kind of cool element, though, too.
Yeah, well, actually, no, it's 5, isn't it?
What?
Of like the Team Avatar here. Yeah, it's 5. It's Zuko. And
Whoa. That's spoilers, bro. So Team Avatar consists of obviously Aang, Katara, Sokka, Toph, Zuko, Momo, and Appa.
Wow, okay, 7. My bad.
Yeah.
But no, and so for somebody who's like an actual like, he's primarily there for comedic effect, I feel like, for the most part, and that's what he's written to be by and large, but he actually has agency and he actually gets opportunity to like shine.
Yeah, he does, big time.
And like a lot of those times he gets to display like his kind of strategic or his planning.
Very much a strategist.
Very much so, yeah. And I mean, like every now and again, it's not like all the time, but it's definitely like, he definitely has his moments on how it works. And so he's definitely kind of viewing the world through a more pragmatic lens here for the most part. And even that, like even starting, like he was like very like skeptical about like the whole Avatar business, how like, things work with like bending and all that here.
Totally.
But I will say, I think out of like the members of Team Avatar, I think Sokka is my least favorite, but I don't think he's like a bad character. I think he's far from it. He's just, I don't know.
I mean, he's a goof. Like that's essentially what he is.
He's a goof, but I mean, I don't know. I just didn't like enjoy him as like much as like the other characters, I guess.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I feel for Sokka because he's like his backstory, and we'll get into that when we get to that episode, is, he's someone who he didn't, I just feel for him, I guess, is kind of more, not that I had the same situation, but I mean, no men around for him growing up in his prime years that he needs a man around. He had to be the man because everyone's off to war. He was too young to go to war. So he's left to take care of the younger guy, the younger kids in the tribe and all that stuff, and be the protector at a young age. So he had to grow up quick. So yeah, I mean, I think he is a goof, but also, when it comes down to it, I think he has a lot of baggage,
Yeah, no, most definitely here.
And then we come into someone like the next character who has a ton of baggage.
Yeah, Zuko.
Yeah, Prince Zuko.
So yeah, I mean, the prince that's trying to prove himself because ultimately, I mean, spoiler alert, he got banished from, the Fire Nation a couple years before the story picks up. I think it was 3 years roughly, somewhere.
I'm not sure. I can't remember exactly.
But he gets banished for dishonoring somebody. And long story short, he has to now prove his worth before he can come back. And so that's kind of, what motivates him to, capture Aang and, bring him back to the Fire Nation. But yeah, I mean, just kind of misunderstood character, has daddy issues basically for the most part.
Yeah.
But I gotta say, probably the most interesting character in the series.
Big time. He's the best one, I think.
Yeah. I mean, definitely the most interesting one this season for sure here. But he may have had like some Confucius philosophy inspirations from like, I was watching a video about it before we started filming and or recording, whatever we're doing here. But basically, the Confucius philosophy is like all about like honoring ancestors, honoring your parents and stuff like that. So that might have played an inspiration for Zuko in terms of like, developing his character, like, trying to restore, live up to like his family's name, live up to his father's expectations, stuff like that.
And that's a big part of a lot of cultures in general.
Yeah.
I would say Zuko's probably my favorite character, especially this season. You just get a lot of background on him.
Yeah.
He is kind of a butt, but he's got a lot of baggage, like we said. Seeking to restore his name, he's misunderstood heavily.
Yeah.
I think he has genuinely good intentions his whole time.
Yes. No,
he's not out to hurt anyone. Like he gets mad sometimes and he wants to prove himself.
Yeah.
I think that's his motivation isn't to harm.
I mean, more than anything, he's just trying to accomplish his goal here.
Well, and his goal is not to kill the Avatar; it's to capture the Avatar.
Right.
So, I mean, there's that.
Yeah. But
part of that being is if you kill them, they're just gonna be born somewhere else.
Right. So they got to get around that whole issue or
by
problem.
Just imprisoning him.
But next up on the list is basically Zuko's companion, Iroh.
Yeah.
Uncle Iroh.
Uncle Iroh.
So, yeah, basically just, he's an ex Fire Nation general. He's also was supposed to be taking over for the Fire Nation as the Fire Lord here, but, situations came up, blah, blah, blah. But that's a story for a different time. Here.
Right.
But, yeah, kind of always vague, never seems to be very straightforward. And like you wrote in here, he's essentially pushing Zuko to kind of grow up, kind of think for himself, not necessarily always, kind of get out of like the whole like mentality that he's been in for pretty much like the last couple of years, ever since he was banished. He's trying to teach him how to, just get past that and grow as a person for the most part.
Yeah, and I really like Iroh as a character, and especially as the seasons go on, because he gets way cooler.
Oh yeah, no, I think he's the best character in the show here. I mean, because he's like Mr. Miyagi with a little bit of like the Jackie Chan goofiness, thrown in there, but he's kind of like essentially a Taoist or a Taoist, where it's like a Chinese philosophy where they go with the flow of nature and.
Kind of like a Qui-Gon.
Kind of like a Qui-Gon, yeah, you could say that. And basically, having respect for nature. So you see that him like,
Oh, totally.
Like,
you see it in some episodes.
Oh, yeah. Like, especially like when it comes to like, the
spirits.
The spirits, exactly, yeah. So, and yeah, it's great. So.
Yeah, I mean, Iroh for me is definitely like that. He's like that fortune cookie almost, where he's very parabolic, meaning like he speaks in parables to Zuko quite a bit. He doesn't ever come out and if Zuko asks him a question, he almost asks him another question.
Right. No, I mean, he is like the human embodiment of a fortune cookie, for sure. Yeah.
But when business needs to go down, he goes down. And he's very powerful.
Oh no, he knows how to throw down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess we could talk about a couple of the side characters, just mention them because they're going to be important coming back to it in later seasons.
Sure. Yeah.
So you got Boomy.
Yeah, which, I mean, Boomy, I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of Boomy, to be honest with you. I just think that...
I think it's a fun character.
Yeah, sure. I guess you could say that. But I think the cool thing about Boomy is, like, he's, like, our first real introduction into earthbending and, like, what earthbending can actually be.
Totally. Yeah, that's what I like about him, too. And it's a cool connection because Boomy's 112 years old.
Yeah, roughly.
He's an old, frail man that... is Aang's longtime friend, and he's still alive, and that's his only friend who's still alive, I think.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of cool for Aang to have someone, and there's flashbacks to him as a kid with Aang, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Then you get a character like Jet.
Yeah, he's war criminal Peter Pan.
Or exactly, straight up.
he's living in the woods with like a band of boys, just going and.
He has cool swords.
The
hook swords.
Yeah, they're called Fu Tao here.
Fu Tao.
Yeah, Fu Tao.
They're sick.
They are sick, especially like when he like hooks one on the end and he's like swinging it around. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, No, but he is war criminal Peter Pan. Like, he lives in the woods with like a bunch of boys. They go pick on like, adults that are coming through their area and all that, and basically they don't care whether or not they kill innocent people along the way, as long as they're accomplishing their mission here, which is kind of like you like if there's a bad guy in the forest, you burn the forest down kind of mentality or whatnot.
Right. Yeah. I think he, in a general sense, has good intentions. It's just really misplaced.
Yeah.
Like with how he kind of operates and what they do.
I mean, he's kind of a little bit of a sociopath here, just because, he's, just the way that he's able to lie so like effortlessly, saying like, oh, this person was actually trying to poison me, blah, blah, blah. And
that just straight up makes stuff up.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And he comes back, so just be kind of paying attention maybe to him a little bit.
Yeah.
I really liked him as being younger. I thought he was cool.
Yeah.
He's a non-bender. He's relying only on martial arts.
Yeah,
and can hold his own.
Yeah, no, exactly here.
So yeah.
Yeah. And then Suki.
Yeah, so Suki's one of the Kyoshi warriors that Sokka kind of has a thing for early in the season.
Very Japanese inspired, by the way, here. Like, the kabuki makeup, and then also the fan and whatnot. Yeah.
Yeah, and Suki comes back later and into the fold, more in book 2. So season 2.
Yeah.
And 3.
And 3, I think, yeah.
Yeah, she definitely comes back there too.
Yeah. And then you got General Zhao.
Or Zhao.
Or Zhao, yeah. Or then like
Admiral,
yeah.
Zhao.
Admiral at a certain point, but he's kind of like your typical military man. He's ambitious, and actually he's
essentially one of the antagonists of the season.
Well, I would say
the biggest one.
Yeah, I would say he is the main antagonist of the season, just because first you might think it might be Zuko, but then you kind of realize that Zuko is just kind of like a victim of the Fire Nation, just in a different way here.
Yeah.
Whereas Zhao is all about like, he was bred by the Fire Nation. He believes the propaganda. He's all about it here. He's really just about like, making a name for himself. And right now he's more or less just a placeholder for like, more like developed villains come along, like Azula and Ozai here for the most part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah, and that kind of rounds out kind of the main cast. I mean, you have characters like Appa and Momo, but they're just they're comic relief sometimes, and also kind of vehicles. Yeah, in a sense, like Appa's a vehicle,
straight up vehicle here,
and he sometimes headbutts things.
Yeah,
like in that I can't remember what episode, but yeah, he headbutts that other creature.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the voice actors. I mean, the cast is pretty stacked.
Yeah. No. I mean, couple that stood out to me personally. Scott Menville, he plays a couple of characters, like a couple extras, but like he was Robin in Teen Titans.
Yeah, his voice is super notable.
Oh, very notable. And then Mako plays Iroh, who is Aku in Samurai Jack.
And Mako's been in a ton of stuff.
Yeah, he has been. He was even a Master Splinter in that one Ninja Turtles movie that
the CGI one?
Yeah, the CGI one, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, then we have people who are a little bit more notable probably than those two. Well, maybe not Mako, but Dante Bosco. So Dante, a long history in voice acting. But even before that, for those of you who are fans of Hook, the movie, he played Rufio, he has super noticeable voice.
Who does he play in Avatar?
Sorry, Prince Zuko.
Oh, he plays Zuko? Okay.
Oh, if you listen to his voice, it's okay. cut and paste.
It's been a while since I've seen that movie.
So Dante Bosco plays Prince Zuko, played Rufio in Hook. And then we have Jack DeSena, who plays Sokka.
Mm-hmm.
So Jack has been on all that. Growing up, I watched all that quite a bit. So his voice is obviously stands out too on that show. So you kind of know. As soon as I heard the show, I was like, "Oh, that's the guy from all that."
Yeah.
He's also currently in a show called The Dragon Prince, which is made by some of the people who worked on Avatar.
Yeah.
On Netflix, and so he voices one of the main characters, if not the main character on that.
Yeah, I think it's the one.
He's Gollum.
Yeah, the one that's like the one prince that uses magic every now and again. Yeah.
Yeah. I just finished that, by the way, finally. it was pretty good.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
I mean, it's no Last Airbender.
No.
But yeah.
Still fun, but I think you have Mae Whitman, who is probably the most notable. She's in Arrested Development. She plays the girlfriend of
Anne, right?
Yeah, it was Anne. Yeah,
Her?
yes, that is her. Yeah, her exactly. So George Michael's girlfriend for all the seasons. She comes back.
Yeah, I don't know.
But yeah, anyway, so she's on in Scott Pilgrim versus the World as one of the girlfriends.
Exes,
one of the exes. She's in Young Justice as Donna Troy.
Yeah. Now, who does she play in Last Airbender?
That is Katara.
Oh, that is Katara?
Yeah.
Really?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So Mae Whitman plays Katara. She's in Young Justice as, like I said, Donna Troy or Wonder Girl. And then she's April O'Neil in the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles show that was on Nickelodeon from 2014 to 2017.
Yeah, CGI one, right? Yeah.
And honestly, her list is so long, it was hard to pick out her most notable roles. And I'm sure we're missing a couple people in there. Oh, well, obviously. So there's only, I think, a couple lines from Firelord Ozai in the whole show.
Yeah.
For this season.
But Hamill.
Mark Hamill plays Firelord Ozai.
Yeah, if you don't know who that is, shame on you.
Luke Skywalker. All right, so now we're going to kind of get into the episodes.
Yeah, kind of the meat of this throwback.
I think this is going to be probably the longest part, which I don't even know where we're at for time, but... Had a burp.
42 minutes.
42 minutes. Okay, here we go.
Here we go.
This might be a two-parter.
It might be.
It might be a two-parter. Yeah, maybe the setup, and now we go into the episodes and kind of what we thought about it. But
yeah,
notable episodes. So before we get into it, the first one we're going to talk about is episode 3. But before that, episode 1 and 2. Fun fact. So episode 1 and 2 are pretty slow. They introduced the Avatar, obviously, what's going on.
Yeah, and just kind of the conflict with like Zuko and all that. Yeah.
So, do you know who directed those episodes?
Dave Filoni.
Dave Filoni did direct those episodes. Yep. I think he did 9 episodes of Avatar. And that's how he got hired for Clone Wars. Was someone saw what he did on Avatar and were like, "Hey, you want to do Star Wars?" And he was like, "What?"
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool.
No,
I didn't know that until the gallery episodes on Disney Plus.
No, me neither. I didn't know he was associated with that. And then, after rewatching Avatar, I was like, "Oh, okay, well, yeah, I guess he really did work on that. I had no idea." But yeah.
So episode 3 is called Southern Air Temple.
Yeah, which is kind of like where this is where the series really starts kind of showing you more about what kind of show you're actually in for here. It's not like your typical kids show here.
Episode 1 and 2 is literally just, it's
set up,
and it has to do with Aang being trapped in an iceberg for 100 years, and they free him. Katara and Sokka do, and then they go on an adventure. So we get to see in episode 3 where Aang is from. So they go to the Southern Air Temple where he grew up. We understand how he got trapped in the iceberg. So I
don't think in this one. I think that's in the storm where
you understand the actual reason behind it, but you understand how physically he actually got put into the iceberg in this episode.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Not the why behind how he got there.
Gotcha.
So basically he flees and he gets in the storm and he goes down into the water and he ends up going to the Avatar state.
Yeah.
And freezes him and Appa in the iceberg. So and we get to see truly that he is the last Airbender.
Yeah.
Because the Fire Nation went and wiped him out because they knew that the next Avatar was born into the Air Nomads, and so they decided to wipe him out. And wasn't there for that. Doesn't believe that they're gone. They go back to check it out, and you see some bones and skeletons.
Yep. Yeah, Gyatso's skeleton specifically here.
Yeah.
But it like I mentioned earlier, this is I think this is the episode that really kind of cemented okay, this is what we're setting the tone here for. We're talking about all these things that have happened. There's going to be a lot more world building, a lot more lore going on, and it's going to be darker than the average kids show, and then it's also going to deal with more mature themes of coming back to a place and things have moved on without you type of thing.
Yeah, I mean, how bizarre, right? Like,
oh yeah, well, it's
and you're a kid, you're 12 years old, and you wake up and your whole family's been killed, and everyone you ever knew, really.
yeah, exactly. No, I mean, it takes a toll.
Yeah. So I think that's a very notable episode, just because we get to see more about the Airbenders.
Yeah,
Because there aren't any except for Aang.
yeah, no, exactly.
Until much later on. Episode 4, Kyoshi Warriors. The only reason I put this in here was mainly because of Suki.
Yeah,
Suki is a way bigger character coming back seasons later.
Yep.
And then also the fact that Kyoshi was a past avatar.
Yeah, so you really starts to kind of hammer home like the whole idea of like this kind of reincarnation kind of cycle of, the avatar is not just one person here. It's, literally like it's getting passed along to different generations and whatnot.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, but no, I mean, and you also get to see like Aang really interact with the outside world pretty much for the first time as an audience here. And you also see like the kind of humility Aang needs for the job of being the avatar, because at first he's kind of just showboating around here, doing push-ups with his breath here and all that. And then, but
show off for the ladies are into him in this episode.
Oh yeah. And like basically just basking in the whole celebrity mentality of it. And it's just like, oh wait, yeah, maybe I should actually rein that back a little bit, because that's probably not the most responsible thing to do here.
Yeah. So then you have episode 5, King of Omashu. We get to meet Boomy, who, like we said earlier, is Aang's longtime friend. And so he does return later.
He does, yeah, in a couple episodes, yeah.
Yeah, a longtime friend of Aang, obviously. And this is the first time we get to see the Earth Kingdom.
Yeah, so you get to see earthbending in action. You get to see kind of like what the culture of the Earth Kingdom is like. You also get the running joke of the cabbage cart here.
Yeah, the Cabbage Man,
Yeah.
I hope that comes into the Netflix series. There's got to be.
And
I hope it's like Dante or someone who...
Yeah, like
a notable voice actor from the show.
Which would be kind of hilarious, just because there would be like this whole Chinese cast of people running around, then just this white guy, basically.
He's not white.
Is he not white?
No.
Oh, I thought he was.
No,
okay.
He's Asian.
Okay, never mind.
Yeah.
Okay, so then he fit in just fine. Never mind.
Yeah, and I don't even know how they're going to cast it, if it is going to be racially kind of tied to each kingdom like it is in the show, or if it's going to be more of a hodgepodge. I think it'd be cool either way, honestly.
Yeah, we'll see.
So then you have episode 6, Imprisoned. Here is where we get to see the annihilation not the annihilation. You get to see that the annihilation of the air nomads wasn't enough. How the Fire Nation has spread across the whole world essentially, and turned bending basically into an illegal thing for places that are occupied by Fire Nation, and not everywhere is occupied. Omashu is not occupied by them.
No.
Ba Sing Se is not occupied by them.
No.
So a lot of the big cities for different like water tribes not obviously occupied. There's these places that aren't controlled by them yet, but it is spreading.
Yeah.
And so we meet a young bender. I don't remember his name. Do you remember?
Oh,
he comes back later too.
Yeah, I do not know, but he's the earthbender that basically Katara meets in the woods, and
yeah, he like throws a pebble at one of the bag. Anyway, so it's this long story. You get to see kind of the oppression that's happening by the Fire Nation across the area.
Yeah.
So,
and you also get George Takei as the warden, or voicing the warden in this episode. But yeah, no, and like kind of like as we mentioned before, like the show explores like more of like mature themes, and one of the I think this is highlighted perfectly in this episode in particular, is the idea of people losing their will to fight here. Like you get oppressed for so long, you get beaten down for so long, to the point where even if you have the opportunity to fight, you don't take it just because you've lost that will to like do anything here. And it's like, it's kind of deep stuff for a kid's show here,
oh, big time. Yeah, and then the Team Avatar shows up, and the young boy who gets captured is eventually in this episode. We're not going to go into every detail of every episode. This is just a brief overview and kind of notable things that happen throughout the season. Yeah, and we'll talk about our review. But basically, they get there and they uprise basically, and they get the heck out of there. But good. I think a solid episode, just kind of show us, kind of build the world more, kind of what's going on. So then we have episode 7 and 8, which are the Winter Solstice, and then the Waterbending Scroll, or it's just Winter Solstice Part 1 and 2.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't write it in there,
but essentially, like 7 and 8, I think they are 2-parters.
Yeah.
I mean, they're pretty much like, I consider those episodes to be pretty much just one episode. Just
they are, yeah, pretty much.
For all intents and purposes here.
But
yeah, I mean, no, a couple of notable things. Well, actually, quite a few notable things happen. I mean, obviously, we're introduced to the spirit world, which is one of the coolest things about the Avatar world. But also, we see how Aang communes with it. We get to see Avatar Roku for the first time. And also, we get like a deadline on like, hey, you need to actually do this like pretty quick here. You don't have all the time in the world here because once this thing called Sozin's Comet comes through, it's going to basically be
game over.
It's going to be game over. Like all the Fire Nation will have like the power that they need in order to take over the rest of the world and oppress it, just because their bending is going to be amplified by the comet here. Yeah,
and Avatar Roku, I mean, we get his backstory later, but it's pretty cool. He's a firebender, so part of the Fire Nation.
Yeah.
Before everything went down, obviously, but just straight wisdom for Aang anytime he needs it, basically.
Yeah, I mean, he's basically Aang's Obi-Wan here for the most part here. Kind of like how Iroh is Zuko's mentor. Roku essentially is Aang's mentor.
Yeah, and I was going to say, basically, he can't commune with him, I don't think, whenever he wants. It's more out of necessity of I need to actually meditate and focus, and then I'll be able to hopefully talk to him, or go to a very spiritual place that amplifies my ability to reach him,
at least at this point in time,
right
here, because later on he's able to commune with him a lot more often here. But yeah, and then also in this episode it's revealed that Iroh has a spiritual connection. He can see like Aang riding the dragon going by when he's like going to the temple on the fire kingdom and all that. So yeah, definitely.
Then we get to episode 9, the waterbending scroll. So this is kind of our next leap in evolution of Katara teaching Aang to waterbend, because that's really who's all teaching him right now, and Aang's kind of already surpassed Katara.
Yeah, at least at this
point.
Yeah.
And then so basically, we get to see them develop more as waterbenders, and we get introduced to the pirates that later tried to carry out a hit on Zuko.
Yeah.
Which is in a later episode. But basically, these pirates have this scroll, and basically they steal it.
Yeah. No, they totally do.
They just steal the scroll from these pirate guys.
And stole it from somebody else here. But yeah.
So, and then, do you have anything else to say about waterbending scroll?
Not really. I mean, this is just kind of like where we kind of see both Aang and Katara evolve in their waterbending more here, and then
that's where they learn the water whip, right?
Yeah, this is the one where they learn the water whip, and they also start using like waterbending in tandem with each other. So like
the push pull of the waves.
Push pull of the waves. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Episode 12 is called The Storm. Now this is where we get the background into why he actually left.
Yeah. So this is probably like one of the biggest episodes of this season here for sure. I mean,
as far as the lore goes, absolutely.
Yeah, and probably one of the most important, like for the Avatar series in general here, just because we actually start to understand character motivations, we actually start to understand backstories and all that stuff here.
Yeah, so we get to find out more information on why Aang left. You briefly talked about it. His master, basically his father, essentially, who raised him.
Yeah.
Now they live in a very nomadic place, so they don't really have moms or dads, I don't think. They're cared for by all the monks, but Monk Yatsu was Aang's biggest mentor, and
basically his pretty much like for all intents and purposes, or a father figure. Yeah.
And basically, the Council of Monks believe that their relationship is getting in the way of Aang's training. And so they're going to take Aang and send him to the northern Air Temple, where he's going to be able to focus more on his training.
Yeah.
As the Avatar. Now, they haven't told Aang he's the Avatar in the beginning of this episode. I don't think.
I mean, they
do. They show you how they even became so they show him coming in, and they're going to tell him he's the Avatar.
Yeah.
So they pull out his toys he played with when he was a kid.
Yeah, which little fact. That's the same process they use
for the Dalai Lama.
Yeah, to choose the Dalai Lama here.
Yeah. So, and if you look at even his clothes, it's very similar to that.
Yeah.
Like the monks' clothes are.
Yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, they have these past toys, and they're like, well, these were your past toys that you enjoyed in your past lives. So you're the Avatar. They usually don't tell them until they're 16.
Yeah.
But they could feel something was coming.
Yeah.
And in the Force, and they told him early, basically.
Yep.
And then I think it's just interesting that because at first in the series he talks about how he found out he was the Avatar, and that but he actually left because of. I mean, he's being selfish, essentially. I wanted to stay with Monkey Atsu. I didn't want to go to this northern area.
Right. I mean, he was running away from his responsibilities here. And I mean, and to be fair, I mean, like, the monks kind of were being douches about it.
A little bit, yeah.
Because, I mean, they were saying, like, hey, this kid can't be a kid. He's got to go do this thing. And Monkey Atsu was like, no, we kind of need him to be a kid just because he needs to be able to, like, actually develop and grow, like, as anybody else would. If we rush him or, like, push him to do something, this could go in a poor direction here,
Totally. So, yeah, then we get to me, like, the Air Nomads sound a lot like Jedi in this episode, where they have a council of them. Yeah, and then... Well, very spiritual,
which is kind of funny because I mean Jedi and like the Jedi Order and Temple were
destroyed.
Well, that and also based on like Buddhist monks and stuff like that. Which I mean that's what the Air Nomads basically are here.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
We get to find out more about Zuko too. Yeah. In this episode, we find out about his scar and what a dick his father is basically.
Yeah, basically. I mean,
so we find out it introduced the Fire Lord in this episode. I forgot he was actually in another episode. Played by Mark Hamill.
Mm-hmm.
And we get our first glimpse of Azula. Yeah. It's just a little moment. She doesn't talk or anything. You just see this really smug little girl. Yeah. And you're like, oh, she looks mean. And she is mean. She comes back and is very big antagonist later on in the series.
Yeah, well, I mean, and no, it's one of those things where maybe I don't really know the backstory on like, or the behind the scenes on like how this thing was made, but it still kind of blows my mind of like how many steps ahead they were thinking about like this whole thing, because Azula, I don't think at this point was even introduced as Zuko's sister here.
Not in that episode.
Not in that episode. And then also just the fact that Azula, like, they didn't even, I don't know if these guys even knew if they were greenlit for a second season and all that, but they were already just planting seeds on, okay, we're going to make sure that if we get greenlit for season 2 or whatever, that this is going to happen here.
And I mean, she shows up at the end, the last episget of the season.
It has like a brief cameo basically, but yeah.
So yeah, and then yeah, we get to understand why Zuko is the way he is now.
Yeah.
Just growing up, basically being abused his whole life.
Yeah, and it's really interesting just because you see like the reason why Zuko gets banished and why his father decides to like burn like his left eye.
Yeah, left.
Yeah, mostly just because Zuko was idealist or was an idealist. He was like, okay, we can't sacrifice our people. We can't just treat them like fodder. We have to actually, care about, the life of our people and stuff like that. And, when he challenged that idea, then, things didn't go well for him here.
Yeah.
So,
and I think that's why, and a big part is the way he is, right, as we see him in season 1.
I think that's why, he is not like as idealistic, or he doesn't seem to be as idealistic as, the rest of like the people from the Fire Nation, because he does like a lot of things that are in his own self-interest. But another thing, it kind of explores the similarities between Zuko and Aang, because you're seeing their flashbacks basically together, and they're kind of two sides of the same coin. They both got robbed of their childhood. They both have enormous responsibilities that they have to, live up to, but they go about it in different ways. Aang still has maintained his innocence. Aang still has maintained like, his morals and, his ideology, whereas Zuko kind of abandoned that, and now it's all about him getting back in the good graces of his father.
Yeah, essentially. I mean, I like I said, Zuko's probably my favorite character in this season. I just like getting to know him better.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, and also quick side note on this episode, we get to see Iroh redirect lightning for the first time.
That's true. I forgot about that.
Before we even really know like what that is, or like the
lightning bending.
Yeah, or the details of it and all that. Yeah. So,
pretty cool.
Pretty cool.
Basically, you get to start understanding that there's sub-bending genres within the bending itself.
Yeah, the 4 elements here.
Yeah,
Yep.
Which is cool.
Yeah.
All right, so, I feel like we even get more of a sense of who Zuko is in this next episode that we're going to talk about, which is episode 13.
Yeah.
Entitled The Blue Spirit.
Yeah.
So, Admiral Zhao, overstepping hard.
I mean, he's Admiral now. He could do kind of whatever the frick he wants.
I mean, I don't know what kind of people are above him.
I think probably just the Fire Lord, maybe.
Probably. Zuko hates him, and they tee off quite a few times throughout the season. But Aang gets captured by Fire Nation because he's out by himself looking for a cure to this flu that Sokka and Katara have.
Yeah, from the last episode here from the storm, which pretty cool way to tie things in continuity-wise.
Totally.
Yeah.
And so basically they're at this place, or he goes to this place, and I don't know what she is, kind of like a medicine woman, if you want to say.
Just
natural remedies, obviously.
Botanist or something like that.
Yeah, and so she gives them these toads. Basically, they're supposed to help. They're supposed to suck on these frozen toads. I don't know.
Yeah.
So he gets captured. There's these sweet Fire Nation archers in this episode.
Yeah, no,
they're not benders. They're just archers.
They're just ballers.
So they're like spec ops for the Fire Lord's army, I guess. I don't know. But they end up taking down Aang and they capture him.
Yeah.
And essentially what we get is this masked person breaks into I don't know if it would be like a camp. It had like walls and stuff too. So it was
like a facility, prison type thing or whatever here.
So this guy breaks into the prison that Aang's in and frees him, and they're trying to get out. Basically, is the whole episode.
Yeah.
Pretty sick action in this episode.
No, very sick action. I would definitely say this is like one of the best episodes we have this season, action wise, for certain.
Yeah, and I remember watching it and being shocked at who was actually revealed to be in the mask, because I thought it was Jet.
Yeah, which I mean, going off of your logic here, because it was a 2-sword thing.
Yeah, so the Blue Spirit has twin swords. They're not bending at all.
Yeah.
And they're pretty acrobatic, spinning and stuff like that, and doing some cool moves. And so I was like, oh, that could be Jet. But we get a big reveal because basically they're escaping. They keep trying to escape. They're going through all these hoops and fighting, and really cool action, really, really cool. And then they get to a point where they're kind of stuck. And so the Blue Spirit goes, yeah, we want the Avatar alive, basically.
Well, right, because up to that point, you think the Blue Spirit is like on the up and up here. He's just like some good Samaritan that just came along to help out Aang in his time of need when nobody else could here.
Yeah. And, I mean, you wouldn't think the wiser, you know?
Yeah.
And then he puts swords to Aang's neck because he wants to get out of there, basically. He doesn't want to be apprehended.
Mm-hmm.
And Aang's like, what's going on? And then so they're able to actually open this huge gate, and they, because Zhao says, let him out.
Yeah, but all the while he's got a sniper trained on him.
So then the Blue Spirit gets hit in the face because he's wearing this kind of Japanese style
like Oni mask.
Yeah. And that's white and blue, and he gets hit right in that, and all that's revealed is like you see slight scarring on his left side of his face.
Yeah,
which is
Zuko's trademark area. Yeah.
And so, and then Zuko is in turn saved by the Avatar after getting knocked out by the arrow.
Yeah.
And I think this is where we see the more conflicted Zuko, because they're talking like in that, I don't know, it's like the forest area.
Yeah, where
and of course he reacts, but he like.
But
Aang's just talking to him like, hey, can we just be friends? Like, do we have to be doing this?
Like, yeah, he kind of is just listening to him tell his story for the most part here,
Mm-hmm.
and just kind of like, maybe just like, embracing the idea, or like, kind of coming, mulling it over a little bit just for like a second or two about like, what if we did, put all this behind us, didn't like, try to be enemies and like actually, be friends here just because, why not here? But then he comes to quote unquote his senses and then, tries to torch him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Essentially, yeah.
Yeah. But, no, I mean, obviously, like you said, this episode and the previous episode definitely hit home the idea that there is more to Zuko than he's
a transformer. He's more than meets the eye.
There is more than meets the eye. He's not just a guy to fill the villain role like Zhao is here or something along those lines.
Yeah.
It also kind of shows how selfish Zuko can be, just because this is essentially a win for his country here. Like,
capture the Avatar. Yeah. You got what you came for.
But essentially, he had to come home to be the hero in order to restore his name.
So he broke him out.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so he couldn't.
So that he could capture him.
Yeah. And it might also just be due to the fact that how much he hates Zhao and like how much he does
big
not
time
want
part of that.
him to get the win.
No, it doesn't.
And the other fact too is like now that we talked about it, I just kind of remembered. The first episode, I think it might be episode 3, where we're first introduced as Zhao, and he's like kind of interrogating Zuko about like the whole idea of like, is the Avatar back and all that.
Oh yeah.
And Zuko's like, I don't know anything here. And it's like, okay, yeah, it's like you're still being selfish. You're like trying to like, do this thing for yourself here rather than like for the good of like your actual nation. You're essentially committing treason here in order to be the hero.
Pretty much.
But but all in all, good episode. I mean, yeah, you definitely start to see like the idea that Zuko is like, he could be turned or he could be, made a good guy, but
yeah, totally. Yeah, I think this is probably one of my favorite episodes in the season.
No, it's definitely one of the best. Yeah.
So, episode 14. The only reason I put this in here, this episode is called The Fortune Teller.
Yeah.
It really starts pushing a love story between Avatar or Aang and Katara.
Yeah, or like at least like opening their eyes to the potential.
Well, and they realize it literally by the end of the episode that they at least like each other, if not they're in love with each other.
Yeah.
Which I was like, okay.
Yeah.
Kid show, whatever. It does come back. Spoiler alert. I'm not going to spoil it. Never mind.
Okay.
But yeah, so that's why that's in there. Episode 15, which is entitled Bato of the Water Tribe.
Yeah.
So Bato is basically a family friend of Sokka and Katara that they meet up with. You get Sokka's backstory.
Yeah, you do. And kind of like, all the traditions and all the things that he was supposed to do. That he
had to miss out on.
Provided that the war wasn't going on here. Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Yeah, so he missed his rite of passage at 14 because of the war, had to grow up quick, like I said earlier, take care of and protect the village. Mm-hmm. We get a first look at their dad in a flashback.
We do, yeah.
And the fight is super dope in this episode.
No, I would say this is, it's honestly like, for the most part, it's not like a major episode that like really reveals a whole lot of like things about like, or like, like a lot of backstory for characters, like with the exception of maybe Sokka, and also just it doesn't really push the story like forward like in a major sense, like the Blue Spirit or like the last 3 episodes of the series or the season. But
it's more world building.
Yeah. But the action that's in this episode is like really good here.
Yeah. So essentially, what you have is Zuko hires this girl, right? This tracker who has, I don't even know what kind of animal it is. It's a really weird.
It's like a anteater, like kind of like blind. It's a blind animal that relies on smell in order to like.
But it's vicious looking.
Yeah, it's vicious looking. Yeah.
So they're riding on that, trying to track the Avatar. So for those of you who don't know, literally the entire series, Zuko's like one step behind the Avatar,
pretty much,
like following them the entire time. And so they get to this point where they track him down. They're able to track him down with these, smeller things, and then. There's the Zuko versus Aang fight, which phenomenal choreography when it comes to like how it was drawn and where they were fighting. And then you get Appa coming in that fights the tracking animal. He just headbutts him. He flies down and headbutts him basically, and that's it. And then they, use their wits to overcome the situation.
Yeah.
Episode 16 is pretty important too. So episode 16 is called The Deserter.
Yeah.
And it refers to an ex-Fire Nation firebender.
Yeah.
Master firebender, actually.
Yeah.
Named Zhang Zhang. He was Admiral Zhao's master.
Yeah.
And he deserted, like I said, he deserted Fire Nation. Katara in this episode, so Aang's starting to learn firebending this episode.
Yeah.
Now, this is called Book 1 Water, so spoiler alert, he does not learn how to firebend.
Yeah.
He's learning how to waterbend in this book, or this season, rather. So, Aang's just being really impatient in this episode.
Very much so, yeah.
He's just teach me how to firebend. Just teach me how to firebend. Just teach me how to firebend. He's teaching him how to like kind of breathe and center himself, because he says breathing's very important to bending, essentially.
Right, yeah.
Like you need to be able to.
Well, he's teaching them like the most basic of basics here. It's like, kind of like when we were taking martial arts. Like there'd be times where they just say, "Okay, go into horse stance.
Yeah.
Stay there for like 500 hours or something like that." It's like okay, well, I want to kick and punch. I want to do the cool stuff.
I want to do spinning hook kicks.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Teach me an axe kick.
But I mean, no, the mentor is like basically telling them like, you have to learn the discipline. You have to learn the basics, just because fire is not like any other form of bending.
It's wild.
It's wild. It's hard to control and all that, which I really like that idea that this is like one that you really need to be disciplined with. Otherwise you are going to be costing, you're going to be costing the things around you, people that you love, all this other things. You're just going to be bringing destruction wherever you go. And
it plays out in this episode in a really good way that helps Aang realize what he's doing, how he's being selfish. Because essentially he's trying to like use as much firebending as he can, and he does like this big blast, not like blast, but like I guess
like
a blast,
a heat wave or
like
something
a heat wave,
that,
and it burns Katara's hands.
Right, yeah.
So Katara goes to the water and holds him under, and then she realizes after she's holding him under that she's healing herself.
Yeah.
So you get like this sub genre of bending that's waterbenders are able to heal.
Yeah.
And so it's just pretty cool, and Katara realizes she has a natural ability to do that. Aang swears to never firebend again.
Yeah. We'll see how long that lasts for.
At least 2 seasons. We find out the order in which the Avatar is supposed to learn to bend, which doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Well, and
I think it's just it rotates. So if you're a waterbender, then you would learn earth, fire, air. But the way they explain it is like,
which I mean makes sense for Legend of Korra, because air is the last one that she masters here. But yeah, I do have some contention with that, just because for one, like Aang is technically firebending in this episode here, and he also waterbended like previously in the Avatar state before he actually like starts waterbending without the Avatar state. So yeah, it's but that's a discussion for another time.
Yeah, essentially it comes down to the styles. So air is very flowy, and it's and the water's the kind of very similar.
And then like
earth is very sturdy and teaches you how to control basically, and then fire is very powerful and passion filled. And you need to learn those other things and have those foundations before you can learn to firebend, because it's dangerous.
Yeah. But a couple other notes on this episode. I really like the mentor in this.
Zhang Zhang?
Yeah, Zhang Zhang in this episode. He's a very traditional, strict, Japanese style, like dojo master.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty cool guy.
Yeah.
He returns as well.
He does, yeah.
White Lotus. There's the thing, like a secret organization called the White Lotus that comes up in Avatar later, so stay tuned for that.
Yeah.
So anyway, episode 18.
Yes.
Called the Water Bending Master. They are finally
at the Northern Water Tribe.
Northern Water Tribe.
Yep.
Which is more of a kingdom.
It really is. Yeah. It's like, at what point do you stop calling yourself a tribe? I feel like if you got palaces and like cities and stuff like that,
made of ice. Yeah.
You're not really a tribe anymore. You're doing pretty well for yourself up there.
Yeah. So here there's tons of waterbenders.
Yeah.
Nothing like the Southern Tribe. Very complex compared to the huts and igloos of the South.
Yeah.
Admiral Zhao is planning an invasion of the Northern Water Tribe. We find out in this episode. Master Paco, I think it's Paco or Pacao. I can't remember how they pronounce it. I think it's Paco.
Yeah, it's one of them words.
Is the waterbender that they've been looking for. At least the master that's going to teach them.
Yeah.
Now, however, this is a very what's the word? They're very traditional in the Northern Water Tribe.
Very
like they still have a range.
Patriarchal in terms of like women's roles and men's roles, saying that women cannot do waterbending unless it's for healing purposes only.
Right.
And all that, and then the men are doing all the fighting. So they have like very defined gender roles.
And they also are still doing arranged marriages.
Yeah,
we find out.
Yep.
So Zuko gets attacked by the pirates from the previous episode.
Yeah, as a hit on from Zhao.
Zhao is paying them to kill Zuko.
Yeah, because he found out that he's the blue spirit.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then Sokka has a thing for the princess of the Northern Tribe, Princess Yue.
Yep.
Which he has a thing for pretty much every girl in this show except his sister.
Yeah, well, thank goodness.
So you see a little bit of romance.
Very early stages.
Very early stages. And then Katara does not like this rule that she can't learn to waterbend, at least in the way that she wants to.
Yeah.
So she challenges Paco to a fight because he's sexist, basically.
Basically, yeah.
We find out he was into her granny. He was engaged to Katara's grandmother.
Arranged marriage, yeah.
And
she left because of the way things were being ran up
there.
She went to Southern Water Tribe.
Yeah, she ran away, and that's why they were all down there.
Yep.
And then Paco eventually comes around, breaks the tradition, starts training Katara and Aang. Because basically Aang was getting taught by the waterbending master, then at night teaching Katara in this episode.
And they found out, so they're like, okay, no, I can't train you anymore if you're not going to respect my tradition, basically.
Right. And then the episode ends with a huge Fire Nation fleet heading to the Northern Tribe.
Yeah.
So, and that's the end of episode 18. Then we get into the season finale, which are episodes 19 and 20.
Yeah.
Episode 19. Mm-hmm. Katara is now the best student in the North.
Yeah.
She has surpassed everyone.
Yeah. Even
in a very short amount of time. I don't know how long they were there.
Even Aang, it's implied that she's better than Aang at waterbending just because like Aang's kind of still goofing around and all that here, but yeah.
Right. Which it very well could be. And Sokka's not leaving the princess alone.
Nah.
And
she's gonna get on that #MeToo life here or something.
Gosh. Well, let's see. So the Fire Nation has arrived. There's soot falling from the sky in a snow form.
Yep.
And Sokka knows this all too well from when the Southern Tribe got invaded by the Fire Nation years ago.
Yeah.
And so there's basically you find out, I think it's in this episode, maybe the next episode, the reason Princess Yue is teetering and flirting with him but not really giving into it is because she's actually engaged.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's not because she wants to be, it's because of tradition.
Yeah.
So she's arranged to be married to this soldier boy that later doesn't really do anything.
Kind of a douche.
Yeah. So we learn waterbenders draw their power from the moon. Mm-hmm. Counter to
like
the counter element, like fire draws theirs from the sun.
Right. Well, and also just like with the idea of like, the tides and
push
like
pull. It's more powerful when the full moon.
Yep.
So there's a full moon that happens later on, but we learn more about Iroh's background and him losing his son in the war and how he views Zuko as his own since he's kind of taken over as the one who's raising Zuko and been spending a lot of time with him.
Which I think is worth mentioning at this point in time is like, Zuko obviously survives the hit on him. Like they blew up his ship. Iroh is basically going undercover, pretending to serve Zhao or like being an advisor or like a co-general or something like that, while he's kind of helping Zuko.
Because he wants to figure out what they're after, essentially.
Well, what they're after, but also like helping Zuko get closer to capturing the Avatar. Maybe not here. We'll see.
Yeah, and Zhao finds out Uncle Iroh finds out how much Zhao actually knows about the spiritual side of everything that's going on.
Right, which I believe like the library that he talked about finding.
Yeah, that's in season 2.
Yeah, I think that is the library in season 2, isn't it? Yeah.
So at least I think it is. I'm not 100% sure, so don't quote me on that. But I'm pretty sure that that's what it is, because that's where they really find out about Sozin's comet and all that stuff.
Yeah, all the knowledge and stuff. But yeah.
So Aang looks to talk with the water spirits. So there's a water spirit that is a huge part of the culture of the Northern Water Tribe,
the ocean, or the spirit,
and water benders and benders in general.
Yep.
Excuse me. So he wants to talk to water spirits and gain wisdom into beating the Fire Nation because he knows that they're here.
Mm-hmm.
Zuko infiltrates the water tribe and tries to take out the Avatar when he's in the spirit world. So when he's in the spirit world, he has to meditate. Yeah. He's very vulnerable. He basically leaves his body and essentially goes to some other plane of existence. And so Zuko and Katara fight. And he easily beats Katara, I feel like. Maybe not as easily as earlier in the seasons, but she kind of holds her own for a little bit.
Well, because at first it's like Katara, like at least like when they're fighting at night, Katara
owns him.
Yeah, kicks his butt here. And then when, Sunrise
later
comes,
on I think that's in the next episode. I can't remember.
Yeah, when Sunrise comes,
he's got the upper hand.
He's got the upper hand. He's able to melt the ice, and then he takes her out easily, and then takes Aang.
Yeah.
And he's trying to flee and return to the Fire Nation.
Yeah, I think the fight's really cool. You see how far Katara has grown as a bender, and then we head into episode 20.
Yeah.
Aang is exploring the spirit world.
Yeah.
And has to visit this spirit called Koa, the face stealer.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Pretty creepy, especially for a kid's show.
Yeah.
It's basically this like spider centipede like creature that will rip your face, kill you, take your face.
Yeah, and like has like multiple faces that he's cycling through.
Yeah, it's really weird and interesting.
Yeah.
And basically you can't show any emotion, otherwise he'll be able to take your face.
Yeah.
So Aang has to be very emotionless when asking questions about the water spirits and who the true identity of the water spirits are is what he's trying to find out.
Yeah. And finds out that they are actually in the real world as like two koi in like the pond that he's actually meditating.
That he's right near, or was, because Zuko's taking him at this point.
Right.
But yeah, through a riddle, he finds out it's the koi fish, yin and yang, push and pull, light and dark. That's what the koi fish represent.
Yeah.
And then Katara, and Zuko are flying Appa and end up finding them basically because Zuko's trying to escape and they have to go into like a cave.
Right, yeah, to wait out the blizzard and all that.
And then you hear a lot more in this episode about Zuko has like a monologue which gives more insight into his upbringing. His father never liked him. He says, my sister's lucky, and he says, I was lucky to be born.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. So, I mean, yeah, and then... it's honestly like a really great moment to like get insight on Zuko here and just kind of understanding like what motivates him, because he later on goes on to say that I don't need luck. I never wanted it. I never wanted to rely on it. This is what has made me strong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's always had to work hard.
Yeah, exactly. Like nobody was ever going to give him anything, not even like fate itself. So he had to like go and make things better for himself rather than wait for something to change.
Yeah, and then basically Katara has a rematch with Zuko and takes him out in a second.
Yeah.
At night, and so they retrieve Aang. Aang spares Zuko's life because that's what he does.
Yep.
And so they bring him back.
Yeah, to the point of like actually taking him with them here. Yeah.
And they find out Yue is she was born basically like a stillbirth, almost like she was asleep.
Yeah.
That's how they explain it. And then they put her in the pool with the water spirit. The water spirit gave some of their life force to her.
Yeah,
turned her hair white.
Yeah, to save her.
And then so Yue kind of owes her life to the water spirit. There's like this debt basically she feels like she has.
Yeah.
And then Zhao threatens to kill the moon spirit. So he,
he shows up to the
pond.
The pond where the koi fish are. Yeah.
Yeah. So Iroh finds out and threatens him. He's like, dude, I'm going to go off on you if you try to kill the water spirit.
Yeah.
I'm going to take you down.
Yeah.
This is Zhao, or not Zhao, Iroh telling Zhao this.
Yeah.
A Fire Nation guy to a Fire Nation guy, very both, high ranking at one point or the other.
Yeah.
And so Zhao kills the water spirit. He just fire blasts him and scorches it basically. And Iroh goes berserk.
Yeah, he does.
And starts annihilating all the Fire Nation soldiers in that area.
Yeah, and then like Zhao is like running for the hills.
Yeah, basically, yeah. And then Aang gets pissed off as too, rightfully so, and goes in the Avatar state.
Yeah, he morphs.
He morphs into a kaiju.
Ocean, yeah, with the ocean spirit, gets his kaiju on.
Yeah, he's like this giant fish. Water-looking being thing.
Yeah, kaiju, yeah.
And he's just like one-shotting all these Fire Nation soldiers with
ships
water.
And all that, yeah.
Yeah, so he's going off. And then Yue gives her life to revive the moon spirit, goes out like a Jedi, straight up force ghosting.
Yeah, just fading away out of the thin air here.
And she becomes the new moon spirit.
Yeah. Yeah, which is also like very reminiscent to like some Japanese folklore. Of like,
big time.
Yeah, princess that originally came from the moon, and then like the moon, her people from the moon come and try to take her back here and stuff. But yeah,
and then we get Zuko and Zhao face off.
Yeah, like their final fight basically here.
Yeah, and I love the lighting in the scene. So it's black and white essentially. Well, yeah. Or black and blue, I guess you could say, like because of where the moon is and where it's shining.
Right.
The only color is the fire that they're bending, and it'll turn normal color if a fireball's going by.
Like the lighting, like the light that the fire gives off, it'll like return a little bit of color here. But yeah, no, it's a really cool effect here.
Yeah, and then Zuko wins.
Yeah.
And then Zhao's killed by the moon spirit.
Yeah. The only thing that I was not like really all about in this one episode is the fact that Zuko tries to save Zhao. Just because I felt like that was a little out of character for him. And I understand that you might be getting to the point where, like, if you don't try to have him do that, that might get a little too dark for a kid's show here.
Probably, that's what I'm guessing.
But, I mean, just given, like, how much, like, Zuko hates Zhao and, like, all the things that he's had to put up from him and then the rivalry and all that.
I think he realizes he's bested him. Like, Zuko is more powerful than Zhao at this point.
Yeah.
And so maybe this is kind of that conflicted. Is Zuko actually going to kill someone, or is he going to spare him? And he does spare him. He goes, "Come with me," and he's like, "No."
Yeah.
And the water spirit just pulls him down and kills him, basically.
Which, correct me, refresh my memory. Do we see Zhao later on?
Dude, I don't know. That's why I actually like this. Rewatch is I don't remember a lot of things.
Because I think we might actually.
He probably does.
But we'll find out.
Right now, as we know it, with our current knowledge, he's dead.
Yeah.
He could come back. I don't remember.
Yeah.
So the episode ends with the introduction of Azula.
Yeah.
And a voiceover from Firelord Ozai.
Yep.
Saying your brother is a failure and Iroh is a traitor.
Yep.
So and then we had a
task for you.
Yeah, and then we had in season 2. But anyway.
Yeah.
This is a hero's journey at its finest.
Yeah.
That's really what it comes down to. They're really the whole gang. This whole series is about them on their way to go find a master to teach them so they could take down the bad guy.
Yep. No, absolutely. Well, now that we got that all wrapped up here, why don't we talk about our favorite parts of the series? Why don't you start us off here?
Favorite parts, Zuko as a character.
Yes. I mean,
I think he's easily my favorite character in the whole series. We'll see going forward.
Yeah. Zuko is definitely one of the highlights of this show here, and especially season 1. I think it's also a really genius way to like really pander to like different ages of like the audience, because for like the younger kids, like like maybe 8, 7, like 8 to 12, somewhere around there.
Yeah,
Aang's kind of your guy. That's the person you identify with. If you're a little bit older, like maybe you're in high school or like in your teens or something like that, chances are you probably identify with Zuko a little bit more, because you kind of understand like, okay, this guy has a little bit more interesting things going on about him, a little bit more backstory, a little bit more of a past here, and the world hasn't been all that kind to him and all that.
Yeah, and then I also like obviously the fighting, the bending, the art, all that stuff. I like Jet in the Freedom Fighters episode. That was really cool. I was a huge Peter Pan fan growing up.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of solid episodes.
But for me, I think some of my favorite parts of this first season, for starters, the last 3 episodes. I mean, I felt like I considered them one episode just because
it's the finale.
It's the finale. They all kind of interweave with each other here, but You get to see more of the spirit world here. You get to see dope battle scenes, a lot of world building, Aang getting his kaiju form on.
Yep.
I think these 3 episodes are probably like my favorite out of the entire series, to be honest.
I think they're some of the best for sure.
I mean, definitely the best of the season, I will say. But I obviously the focus on martial arts and the respect that the show brings to him, like we discussed earlier, I really like that part that this season brings and introduces us. And then the amount of lore that this series has.
A ton.
And like it's also very well thought out, very well explained, and also the creative use of powers. It's not just like, okay, I'm gonna hit you with my water attack and then I'm gonna hit you with my fire attack. It's like, no, I might actually like use the water on the ground, turn it to ice, and like encase you in ice here, or I might use the earth to like turn something to dust, reform it into like a boulder, and then shoot it at you here. It's like really cool thought out power usage.
So least favorite part, real quick, just the love story episode. That's for me. That's all.
Yeah, I mean, I think it gets slow, and the first couple of episodes, and even like there's some slow parts in the season, but especially like episode 11, the Great Divide, where they're going through the canyon, I think is a filler episode, and then the humor. I'm not a big fan of the humor per se, but I'm not gonna really give it that much crap just because it's basically me, a full-grown man, saying, I don't like this children's humor in this children's cartoon here.
Right.
Yeah.
Overall thoughts, great job all around. Can't wait for season 2.
Yeah. No, I agree. So.
And thank you guys for watching. Hopefully you subscribe, leave a comment, all that good stuff. We're going to have season 2 here shortly.
And let us know what else you want us to do a throwback on in the future. Maybe we will, maybe we won't.
Yeah. Leave it down in the comments. Have an awesome day, and remember, everyone's a nerd about something. Later.